Oh, whoa. You gonna jump up? You can jump up. Hi. What's up, sweetie? So today, I'm gonna start working on what I want is a first-person game. So I'm probably going to end up using third-person layout so that I can get a character and everything. And then I'm basically just gonna go down the YouTube rabbit hole and kind of just learn kind of what's going on. My idea is that I kind of want it to be Destiny with something along the lines of Final Fantasy mechanics, but I don't know that that's really going to work too well. We'll see. I think I started these guides.
Welcome to my YouTube tutorial series, where I'll taking you through the process of creating first-person shooter from third-person character. If you're a fan of MMO survival games, don't forget to wishlist my game Raise Your Tribe on Steam. You subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes.
I just want to make something
I'll be covering
stupid simple.
a lot of exciting aspects, including mechanics, level design, AI enemies, and much more. Alright, let's get started with the first episode, the basic setup. If you're new at Unreal Engine 5 or game development in general, don't worry, I'll guide you every step on the way.
I do kind of know how to use the engine.
First,
I've messed around with it a few
locate
times.
the third-person character blueprint in Content Browser. This blueprint is provided by template and works our starting point. The first thing we have to do is reparent camera boom component to player mesh. This step will be allowed to attach camera to character body and make it move with the player seamlessly. Now that camera boom is side of player mesh, we need to adjust parent socket. I prefer using neck instead of head.
A what? A balance circuit? Is that what he said? A parent socket. Okay. The issue that I have with a few Unreal guides is that I really can't understand the language sometimes. Alright. How do I turn again? I cannot remember. Click and drag. Got you. I remember Alt-L was for light. No, it wasn't. Fuck. I can't remember. Okay, so third-person blueprint should be this one. Yeah. So he said to add a new parent socket to allow the camera to be right on the neck.
Step will be allowed to attach
sense.
camera to character body and make it move with the player seamlessly. Now that camera boom
Make it move with the camera seamlessly. Makes sense.
is side of player mesh, we need to adjust parent socket. I prefer using neck.
I think I would also prefer using the neck. Neck 1.
Instead of head as the parent socket for the
picked
camera.
neck 2.
This is because some animations
What is the
cause
difference
lot of
between
head.
neck 1 and neck 2? One of them's a bit higher than the other one.
Head movement, which might lead to jittery camera experience. Using neck camera, this is because some animations cause lot of head movement, which might lead to jittery camera experience. Using neck as a parent socket provides more smoother camera move.
How the fuck did he...
Camera. This is because some animations cause lot of head movement, which might lead to jittery camera.
What? He cuts? My dog, you can't do a cut. Do I just put it where I want it? How did you do that?
Current socket for the camera. This is because some animations cause lot of head movement, which might lead to jittery camera experience. Using neck as a parent socket provides more smoother camera movement and make instead of head as the parent socket for the camera. This is because some animations cause lot of
What?
move with the player seamlessly. Now that camera boom is out of player mesh, we need to adjust parent socket. I prefer using neck instead of head.
Okay, so he reset the values after he clicked on it of the camera. So go back. I forgot how to go back. Shoot. Maybe I should just restart from the beginning. But it should just be this. Okay. Drag the camera onto the mesh. Then he clicked the camera. Chose the neck. As the parent socket. Reset these values. And then how did he get the camera to go where he wanted it to, though? Did he just move it on it? That's my only guess. Just straight up do that? I mean, it's gonna look stupid though, isn't it? Oh. Back to the level. Think if I just drop a guy in there? I mean, it looks about right.
As the parent socket for the camera. This is because some animations cause lot of head movement, which might lead to jittery camera experience. Using neck as a parent socket provides more smoother camera movement and make it feel more natural. Set target arm length to 0.
Create a car in Blender that has several materials that made them. When you import your car in Unreal, you get all the status mesh materials. How are you supposed to texture it since there are multiple materials? You're supposed to create a master material for each part. I am also new.
Just like that. Remember to always save. Then select follow camera and find use palm control rotation property
This guide is wild.
which might lead to jittery camera experience. Using neck as a parent socket provides more smoother camera movement and make it feel more natural. Set target arm length to 0.
Target aim length is what he's changing to fix that. Okay. That makes sense. And that's on the camera boom to 0? What? Okay. That it's a really roundabout way of doing that, but I guess it kind of works. We did get there.
Just like that. Remember to always save. Then select follow camera and find use palm control rotation property.
Use pawn control rotation. Use pawn control rotation so that way it would change. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that the camera will spin with me instead of spinning slightly differently.
Enabling this option ensures that character rotation will be controlled by the camera.
Huh? Well, I mean, that works. Definitely feels like an Unreal game, but it works. Like, I don't like that the shoulders clip, but that'll be fixed later. I mean, it's not bad. GG, YouTube for the win. Physics blocks are just an Unreal thing. Okay, so we have a character that moves. Kind of. That's something.
Allowing us to look around in a first-person view. Let's add just a little bit camera location so it would look a little bit better. Next we will be enable use control rotation yaw. This option allows our character to rotate according to controller's input, giving us full control over the character direction.
What?
Our character to rotate in a first-person view. Let's add just a little bit camera location so it would look a little bit better. Next we will be enable use control rotation yaw. This option allows our character to rotate according to controller's input, giving us full control over the character.
Use full control yaw. Control yaw. Right. Am I playing? Is that why? All results have been filtered by what? What is he under? The whole blueprint. So this? Yeah, okay.
Direction. Next, download couple assets from Unreal Engine Marketplace. I will leave links to description. So animation starter pack and then military weapons silver pack, and then just import those to your project. Now we have imported the animation pack in our project. Now we need to retarget those animations to UE5 mannequin. You can go ahead and delete any unnecessary mobs and extras from that pack. We are not going to need those in this tutorial.
Okay.
Now select all animations. Then right click, then choose retarget animation assets and duplicate retarget animation assets. Next, select appropriate IK retargeter. In this case, it is from UE4 to UE5 mannequin.
Okay, so this is gonna be... Okay. I think I can do this in here, can't I? Do they have... What the fuck is it called? Quixel Bridge or Marketplace? Marketplace. I don't think this will show card information or anything. Hopefully not. Did it die? I think it died. There we go. Okay. So I have added it to my library. I can't remember how to put it into... Oh, I have so many materials. Fuck. The joys of having messed around with it a little bit before. Unreal Engine is fucking suffering, dude. Well, I should just be able to drag it into here. Let's make a new folder. Yeah, folder. New folder. Shit. It changed this, didn't it? Ray, stop. Parent socket is still the neck. Should probably move this forward just a touch. Yeah, that looks fine. The hands are a bit much, but that looks way better. So then it comes down to getting these animations, which I should just be able to drag them. Can I? Okay, fucking. Where did it go? It's in the maps folder, right? So all of this can get deleted. Did I accidentally move all of these? What? What did I do? I don't know what I did. It keeps putting the new folder in maps. Why? Okay. New folder, third person. Why was that so hard? So now I take this. View in launcher. But the Epic's game launcher is killing itself. So okay. Select the project. Oh God. What is this project called? What is it called? Shit, I forgot to live it. My project 4. Asset not compatible with 5.5. That's fucking rough, dude. All of it's 5.5. What is it compatible with? 5.4? March 12th. January, February, March. So it was updated like a year ago. So yeah, probably 5.4. 5.2! Okay. Well, that's rough.
Scripting language called Blueprints, design a user interface to display game information, create custom weapons from scratch, destroy objects using chaos physics,
This guide might be
and
the
finally,
play.
add our game to any environment you choose. You don't need any Unreal or programming experience to follow along. Everything
I think
throughout
I've
this
started
process
watching
will be
this video
shown
before.
step by step. It is important to note that I have another UE5 beginner tutorial that focuses
This
on level and
5-hour one, I
environment
did
design.
watch that one
So if
before.
you want to learn how to create your own environment, then you can check out that video. This tutorial will mostly focus on programming. Now, we are going to start with the very basics. If you already know how to navigate inside Unreal and move objects, then you can skip to the next chapter, where we dive into programming with blueprints. So with all that being
dive
said,
into the next chapter.
let's start creating our
Got
game. And when I mention programming, probably the first thing that comes to mind is someone sitting at a desk and typing out hundreds of lines of code. And while we can program games that way in Unreal Engine, with the language C++, Unreal also gives us the option to use their visual scripting language called Blueprints. So instead of writing hundreds of lines of hard to read code, we can just get boxes and stream them together called nodes. Logically, they're the exact same thing as typing out code. It's just another way to visualize your program, and in my opinion, it is a lot easier and faster than C++. So a common question is, should I learn C++ or should I learn Blueprints?
C++.
For most of your projects, I would stick with Blueprints, especially if you are a beginner. Blueprints can do almost everything C++ can, but even if you are going to use C++, you're going to encounter Blueprints. Since Blueprints are everywhere in Unreal Engine, one way or another, you're going to have to learn Blueprints. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to jump straight into Blueprints.
Let's open up a blueprint, and probably the most important blueprint right now for our game
is the third person character. So the default third person character that comes with the template. I'm going to press escape to exit game mode. And then all of our blueprints are right now located within third person blueprints and DP underscore third person character. So if I double click on this, this is all the logic that makes up my third person character. And right now our window is hovering on top of our Unreal editor. I can hold down left mouse button on the tab and then dock it up here. That's how I can quickly switch in between my main map or any of the editor windows I have open. Before we dive into blueprints, let's cover the user interface. So right now we have the event graph in the middle here. And the event graph is where we're going to be doing the majority of our blueprint logic. And then to the left of that, we have the construction script. We will not be going over the construction script within this video because this is mostly used by artists. And then to the left of that, we have the viewport. The viewport contains all the different objects that make up my blueprints. And it's important to note that in Unreal, objects that are inside of blueprints are called components. So this camera right here is a component, and this character is also a component. And you notice that when I select on both of them, their names are being selected within the components tab right here. So this window is essentially just like our outliner for our world, but it's for our blueprint. So it contains all the components that make up this blueprint. Below that window, we have the blueprint tab. The My Blueprint tab has all the nodes and variables that are contained in my blueprint. For example, in order to get to the event graph, I could come up here and select the event graph window, or under graphs, I can select event graph to jump to that location. We are going to cover more of the My Blueprint window when we start to create nodes. And of course, to the right here, we have the details panel, which allows us to edit any of the details of objects we have selected. So if I have my static mesh right there selected, then I can edit some of the details. Maybe I can even change out the mesh. So right now it's the female mesh by default. I can also go here and then select skm_Manny to get the male mesh. And the controls of the blueprint viewport are the same as the level. So I can hold down right mouse button to go ahead and navigate, or I can press the F key to jump to my selected component, and I can use the scroll wheel to zoom out and zoom in, and hold down Alt and left mouse button to rotate. So Alt and left mouse button to rotate around an object, and then use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And here's another tip. I can hold down the L key and the left mouse button to then rotate my sun to see what my blueprint will look like in different lighting angles. And finally up here, we have our toolbar. And the most important button up here is the play button. So I can also play my game from the blueprint and it will open up a new window with my game. So there are two ways I can play my game. Press escape to exit. And all the way over here, we have the compile button. Whenever we make a change to our blueprint, like adding a new node within the event graph, in order for that change to take effect, I'm going to have to recompile my blueprint by pressing this button. Or I can just press play, which will automatically compile all the blueprints that my game needs. And finally, because all these panels are widgets with tabs, I can always grab them and then dock them to the side. So I can customize my user interface. And if I mess up my user interface, I want the default user interface back, then I can always go to Windows, load layout, and choose the default editor layout to get that back. Now it is time to create our first person shooter. But in order to follow along with this tutorial, you have to download some custom free assets designed for this tutorial. You can download the assets, link in the description below. Now that we know how to navigate our blueprint editor,
What do you got? A target 3D object. That's it? Okay. My name, Cole Van Hill. Hopefully I don't get a billion emails from this, but we'll see. What did it go to? My spam folder? Email has been sent. If you didn't get it, check the promotions tab. Okay, so take these and new folder. And I'm gonna just drag them in here. No, I'm not. Why not? Copy. Import. Fuck me. Okay. If I just chuck these in here. 333 items to downloads. Oh, fuck. Can't I just take both of these? Why not? Did he already do it for me? Is that what's going on here?
I think it's time that we jump into a brand new project because, of course, you probably noticed that, wait, this is a third-person character. This isn't a first-person shooter, and that's the game we are going to be creating. So let's go ahead and create a new project specifically for the first-person shooter. And to do so, I could come up to File and select New Project up here to get the New Project window, or just like beforehand, I can exit out of everything and then double-click to open up Unreal Engine to also get the Unreal Project browser. Now I could go into Games and then start off our game from the first person template, but to future-proof this video, that's how in the future, if they ever do change the first person template, I recommend you start from the first person template project that is included within the downloadable assets. So if you haven't already, go ahead and download the target game assets, link in the description below. Once you have that downloaded, you want to make sure before you open up the project, you need to unzip it. Double click to open it up, and specifically we need to unzip the first person template. So go ahead and drag that onto my desktop to unzip it. Okay, now that it's unzipped, let's go exit out of the Unreal Project browser. We can rename this to anything. I'm going to call this My First Game and double click to open up its folder. And I'm also going to rename it right here because the project is still called First Person Template. So right click, go to rename, or shortcut is F2, and call this My First Game also.
There's so many shortcuts.
So now I can double click on it, and that is how you rename projects, in case you're wondering. This is what you will see when you open up the first person template. This template is very similar to Unreal's first person template, except if I press play, the gun is automatically spawned in, which will just make it easier for us when I'm demonstrating the very basics of blueprints. I can walk around with WASD, jump with space, and if I press the left mouse button, I fire my weapon, which are just firing bouncing balls, and then I can fire that into one of these boxes, which will fly away because they have physics. And press escape to exit. Now let's go ahead and let's jump into our first person character to learn more about blueprints. So press Control and space, go into first person, blueprints, and right here.
Okay, hopefully level works. It does, but all the textures are not loaded in. There we go. Okay. So he says go into first person blueprints, first person blueprint.
Is the character that we're using. So if I double click to go on this is the blueprints that make up my first person character. And here is the viewport. So as you can see, it's just a capsule collision, a camera, arms, and a weapon. And the weapon is built into the first person character. Let's go into the event graph. Now, what exactly are all these nodes? And before we jump into what these nodes are doing, the controls are right mouse button to pan. So hold down the right mouse button to pan my graph, and then use the scroll wheel to zoom in or zoom out. So that's right mouse button pan, scroll wheel to zoom out or zoom in. Now we're going to start creating nodes, string them together, change them to create our own game. And don't worry, I know this looks complicated. We are going to create our own blueprint from scratch very soon. I just want to have this open as an example to show what exactly blueprints are doing behind the scene. So if we zoom in very simply, these red nodes are events. So these events could be linked to other
Events are what
blueprints,
you do.
or they could be linked to the player themselves pressing buttons on the keyboard. For example, this event is telling us that it's going to be activated whenever the player presses the left mouse button. So when they press the left mouse button, an executable wire will be shot out, and then all the nodes that are connected to it will be executed in order. First, the player is going to press the left mouse button, then an animation is going to play. We're going to spawn a projectile bullet, which is the yellow sphere, and then we're going to play a sound at location. So all three of these nodes make up the fire logic. Or up here, we have an action called jump, which is linked to my spacebar. So whenever I press the spacebar, the player is going to jump, and then when I release the spacebar, the player is going to stop jumping. And we can watch these nodes fire in real time. Now let me go move the details panel off to the side so we can see more of our blueprints. And then if I press play up here, we get our little window. Now if I go into my game, by clicking on the screen, we no longer have access to that mouse. So if I ever want to get back my mouse, I can press Shift and F1 at the same time. So that's Shift F1 to get my mouse cursor. So now that I have my mouse cursor and I'm no longer playing my game, I can go ahead and make the window just a little bit smaller like that, and then put it up here to the top right hand corner. And I can watch my player character's nodes run in real time by coming up to No Debug Object Selected, select the first person character to watch that blueprint's nodes. And let me make the window smaller so I can see my game. Now, if I walk around with my debug first person character selected, we can see that right there. If I press space, those nodes are running in real time. Or if I fire my weapon, you'll see the white line becomes orange, which is telling us that all the nodes connected to that event are firing. So when I press fire, Unreal will execute these three nodes in order. And that's why blueprints are amazing. It allows us to see the logic of our game running in real time. So if there are any issues and we need to debug our game, then we can watch our blueprint to see what's wrong. And it helps us get a better sense of what is happening behind the scenes of Unreal. Now let's go ahead and create an event and a node connected to it. So to create an event or any nodes, you just want to right click anywhere in the screen. So right click in an empty location, and then we're going to create a new event, which is linked to keyboard F. So type in keyboard F and select it right there. Now, whenever I press the F key, this event will fire, and anything connected to pressed will be executed. Now, to connect a node to pressed, I can drag from here and let go, and Unreal is smart enough to ask us what node we want to connect this event to, and that is the print screen. So go ahead and select print screen right there. Now, if we want to break a node connection, hold down Alt and left click. So that's Alt and left click to break a connection. And you can always reconnect them up like this, or you could hold down Shift and click on the first pin, and then click on the last pin with Shift still held down to automatically connect them without dragging. So that is Alt to break, Shift to hook up two pins, and let's say if you do hook up a pin and then you realize, hey, wait, that's in the wrong location, then you can hold down Control and drag the left mouse button out to go ahead and reconnect the pin to somewhere else. But in my case, I want to leave that at pressed, not on release. And if you ever want to duplicate a node, it's just like in our level.
It's a very
hover
basic
over the nodes you want
guide,
to
but it's
duplicate
kinda
and press
helpful for
Control
getting back
D.
into it.
And to delete them, press the delete key. Again, to add a node, I can delete that node right there and right click, and this gives me a list of all the nodes Unreal Engine has for us. So specifically, we want the print screen node, so I can type it in up here. Now, this is very important. Let's say if you type in the name of a node and then it doesn't come up, that's because Unreal's context sensitive is turned on. Essentially, what context sensitive is doing is that it's trying to guess exactly what node the player needs. And I'd say for 95% of the time, this context sensitivity does work, but there's some rare cases where it doesn't work. And you want a very specific node, then go ahead and uncheck it to get access to more possible nodes. Now, in my case, I'm generally just going to leave this on for now and type in print screen. Also, this is me personally, but instead of holding down shift to connect two pins, I like to drag from here by holding down left mouse button and connecting it up like that. So the print screen will, as you can guess, print a screen onto our viewport. So this will say something on the top left-hand corner, and we can have this say anything. So I'm going to do the very classic hello world exclamation point. And then we have a duration. Right now it's going to last for 2 seconds. Let's have this hello world last for 5 seconds. So now,
I mean, this is just if you play and you press
right
F,
here,
it just says
that's how I can
hello.
see my window and press
the only
play.
difference
To make
about
this a little
those.
bit bigger, if I press the F button, that will fire, and in the top left-hand corner, we will get hello world up there. So that tells us that this is working, and I could just spam F, and congratulations, you just created your first event in Unreal Engine. So what we're telling Unreal is that, hey, whenever the player presses F, let's go ahead and print screen hello world. But this logic is really boring. Now it's on to the fun stuff, and that is actually programming our game to create a shooter game where the player has to shoot a bunch of targets within the given time frame. But before we can do that, we first have to migrate some assets. So the assets you want to migrate are located within the downloadable content if you haven't already gotten that. So go ahead and double click on it, and we have the beginner game assets. So go ahead and drag that onto your desktop to unzip it. Now this is going to contain a brand new project. So double click to open up this second project.
No
and this will be
way.
the new project. It's a completely blank project, except it contains some assets we want. So it has the sci-fi weapons. If I double click on it, you can see what this is. And it's a weapon that we're going to give the
Just for
player.
now, I'll put it on the desktop.
And of course, we have the target meshes. Now, the reason why I didn't include this within the template is because
What? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? What? Okay, sure. But it didn't give me the game. That's odd. Okay, this works though. I guess I put both of the folders into one part. That's fine. I also have no idea what all of this is. A lot of it is actually Unreal stuff, but you know.
it's essential to know how we can move assets in between two different projects. So I want to bring these folders into my first game. And to do that, we first need to know the location of my first game. So where is this project
Can't you
located?
just drag and drop
Luckily
all
for
of
us,
it?
we saved it on the desktop right here called My First Game. So open it up, go to Content, and then go ahead and copy the location of the content.
Gotcha. Fucking. Where did I put it? I put it in here. Content. Just here.
Folder. The reason why is because we're going to tell the other project with the assets where we want to duplicate these assets into. So go ahead and hold down Shift to select two different folders, right click, and then select Migrate down here. So it's going to ask us that we want migrate
Oh god.
all these assets, click OK. Now we need to navigate to the location of the content folder of the project we're copying our assets into. And since we already have that location, I'm going to paste it right there and then select folder. Now I no longer need this beginner game asset project, so I could go ahead and delete it right here. Okay, now within our main project, if I press Control and space, we have
I feel
our
like we could
weapons.
have just done that a little bit simpler without the second project, but as you said, it's good to know how to do it. So now in my content drawer, I do have the weapons. Nice. Okay.
And we have the targets. Now that I have my target mesh, it is finally time to create our first blueprint class completely from scratch. To create a blueprint in Unreal Engine, let's first navigate to the folder we want to place it in. And in my case, I want to place it in first person blueprints. So this folder right here, and this is where I'm going to store all my blueprint programming logic. Now right click anywhere empty within the content browser, and then select the blueprint class up here. So it's the very first one, which means it's the most important asset in Unreal. So let's select that. And now it's going to ask us to select what type of blueprint we want to create. And we specifically want to create an actor class.
Okay.
The reason why is
So we
because
wanna create
actors are
ourselves.
anything that can be placed in my world. So let me go exit out of that. So this box is an actor. This sun is an actor. Even our sky is an actor because we're able to place it in our world. And since our target will be inside of our world, that means when we create the blueprint class, it has to be an actor. So go ahead and select that. It will ask us to create a name. I'm going to call it BP underscore target. And BP stands for blueprint. Now you don't need to name this BP underscore target. You could just call this target.
I will name it
but I
BP
like to start all my
underscore target.
blueprints off with BP just as naming convention. But that's completely optional. Also, if you ever want to rename an asset, you can right click and select rename, or the shortcut, just like on Windows, is F2 to quickly rename. Now let's double click to open up our first blueprint. And immediately notice it is blank, except this little widget thing in the middle here. And that's just our scene's root. So that's the origin point of our blueprints. Now, in order to add our target mesh to this blueprint, we're going to go to target right here, and we have that static mesh. So there are two ways to add it to the blueprint. Number one, I can simply drag it on top of that default scene root and let go. And then that will add it to my world, or pressing Ctrl Z to undo that.
Why does his
I
target
can
look different
come
than
up
mine?
here and type in static mesh.
His
and
is a texture, mine doesn't. Oh. Okay.
select a static mesh link, except this little widget thing in the middle here. And that's just our scene's root. So that's the origin point of our blueprints. Now, in order to add our target mesh to this blueprint, we're going to go to target right here, and we have that static mesh. So there are two ways to add it to the blueprint. Number one, I can simply drag it on top of that default scene root and let go. And then that will add it to my world,
Which is
or pressing
probably what
Ctrl
I'll
Z
do
to
most
undo
of the
that.
time.
I can come up here and type in static mesh and select a static mesh component. And then within the mesh component right here, I can select the target in the drop down. So in the drop down, type in target and select it right there. So those are two ways. The shortcut is to just drag it onto the default scene root, which is easier. Now that we have our first blueprint, we can start to add logic within the event graph right here, which is completely empty except for the 3 events. But for now, let's compile and simply drag in that new blueprint that we created within the first person blueprint folder. So if I drag in my target, now this is the blueprint we just created. So all the logic we're going to add right here will affect this object in my world. And because it's a blueprint, I can hold down Alt and duplicate it around my level. And one thing I also noticed that I have snapping turned on. Let me go turn off snapping up there. Now here's a tip to open up blueprints. And that is, let's say if I have my BP underscore target window closed, then I can always come up to my blueprints. And let's say I want to quickly edit it. I could press Control and B to find where it is within my content browser, then double click to open it up that way. Or the shortcut is to press Control and E to open up an assets editor. So you can select any asset in your world, for example, this box, press Control and E to start editing that asset.
That's
Let's add a little
convenient.
bit of logic to the target, and that is specifically I want to create an event that will be activated whenever my projectile hits a target. So when it hits a target, I want the projectile to do something. So first let's create the event by going back into our target, and then I want to select the static mesh. Now by selecting the static mesh, if I scroll down, we get all these events we can create. I specifically want the on component hit. So whenever something hits this target, this event will be fired. So click on the plus icon to create it. We don't, or the
What?
shortcut is to press Control and E
Oh, down here.
to open up an assets editor. So you can select any asset in your world for whenever my create it. We don't need these events right now, so let me delete them. We will go over what they do later. And I'm going to hook up a new node to this to just double check that this is working, and that is a print screen.
Makes
So I
sense.
use print
Okay.
screens everywhere to debug and make sure that I'm going on the right track when programming my game. And the screen will be, let's call this target hit, exclamation point, and some nodes will have advanced options. If I select this arrow, and for text color, let's make this
what?
reddish. So that's how I can actually
I
see
fucked it up
Because the sky's
already?
blue, it's kind of hard to see blue text in the top left-hand corner. And for duration, make it 5 seconds, a little bit longer. So I press play, and now if I fire my weapon, boom, we'll see that the target is hitting.
What?
This event is working. But we have a glitch right now, and that is my player can come up to it, hit the target, and then it will start saying that the target is hit.
What? Okay. Click on the thing. On component hit. Print string. Hello. Is it supposed to be the whole thing?
A little bit longer. So whenever something hits this target, this event will be fired. So click on whenever my projectile hits a target. So when it hits a target, I want the projectile to do something. So first let's create the event by going back into our target, and then I want to select the static mesh. Now by selecting the static mesh, if I scroll down, we get all these events we can create. I specifically want the on component hit. So whenever something hits this target, this event will be fired. So click on the plus icon to create it. We don't need these events right now, so let me delete them. We will go over what they do later.
What?
And I'm going to hook up a new node to this to just double check.
Okay. Let's try this differently then. So let's try adding a static mesh. Which it just... What the fuck?
That this is working, and that is a print screen. So I use print screens everywhere. Or the shortcut is to press Control and E
Why is it
to
just
open
work
up
for
an
him?
assets editor. So you can select any asset in your world, for example this box, press Control and E to start editing that asset. Let's add a little bit of logic to the target, and that is specifically I want to create an event that will be
Where
activated
is
whenever
it
my
supposed to
projectile
go?
hits a target. So when it hits a target, I want the projectile to do something. So first let's create the event by going back into our target, and then I want to select the static mesh. Now by selecting the static mesh, if I scroll down, we get all these events we can create. I specifically want the on component hit. So whenever something hits this target, this event will be fired. So click on the plus icon to create it. We don't need these events right now, so let me delete them. We will go over what they do later. And I'm going to hook up a new node to this to just double check that this is working, and that is a print screen. So I use print screens everywhere to debug and make sure that I'm going on the right track when programming my game. And the screen
I'm not
will
going
be,
on the
let's
right
call this
track.
target hit, exclamation point, and some nodes will have advanced options. If I select this arrow, and for text color, let's make this reddish. So that's how I can actually see it. Because the sky's blue, it's kind of hard to see blue text in the top left-hand corner. And for duration,
Do I need a new
make it
one?
5 seconds, a little bit longer. So I press play, and now if I fire my weapon, boom, we'll see that the target is hitting. This event is working, but we have a glitch right now, and that is my
Okay, chill. I need to fix the thing. There we go. I had the wrong target in the map, is what I had wrong there.
player can come up to it, hit the target, and then it will start saying that the target is hit. So this is exactly what I don't want to
Yeah,
happen.
that is
I only
accurate.
want that event to run when we fire on it. So in order to do that, move the event and drag from other actor, and then type in cast to, and then the name of our bullet. So our bullet blueprint right now is called BP underscore first person projectile. So if I open this up, this is the blueprint that's being spawned whenever my character fires. So right
Makes
here, I can
sense.
drag from other
Okay.
actor and go cast to first person projectile, which is the name of my sphere bullet, and hook it up like this. So casting is a whole nother lesson, but essentially what it's doing right now is that's asking, hey, is this actor that's currently hitting my static mesh, is it a first person projectile? And if it is a first person projectile, then we can execute everything that's connected to this pin. If it's not, then this pin will run. And we can see if this logic is correctly running in real time. By first, let me go ahead and let's delete those two targets. So we only have one target to make it a little bit simpler. And also let me scale it up so it's bigger. Go back into my target blueprint and press play. So now if I press fire, then target is hit. But then if I walk up to it, you'll see that the execution gets to the cast. So it gets to the blue node and then it stops because, hey, this isn't a projectile
That's good.
hitting the static
Okay.
mesh. It's the player character, so it's not going to run. Only when I fire on it will it run. Now we need a way to track how many targets are hit. So if I come into here and if we have multiple targets, I want to be able to know how many targets
Very
have been
neat.
hit. So for example, it would be 2 right there. And then if there's only 2 targets in my world, then that means the player has won the game. In order to do that, we will use a game mode. And the game mode is what you expect. It's a blueprint, but it handles a lot of the game features. So if you're playing Capture the Flag, then the game mode will keep track of how many flags each team has captured. But in our case, the game mode will keep track of how many targets the player has hit and the timer of the game. Press Control Space to go back into our first person blueprints, and the template already comes with a game mode. I want to create one from scratch to go ahead and show how you create one. So let's right click, go to Blueprint Class, and select Game Mode Base. And I'm going to call this one GM underscore for game mode, and let's call it Target Game. So this will keep track of all the logic of my game. It will tell us whether or not the player won or whether or not the player lost. And if I select
this
class
is
default,
new.
we already get a bunch of details that we can set right here. So I can select what the default pawn class is. This will essentially tell us what blueprint should the player control. Right now it's set to default pawn, which is not what we want. I want to set this to BP underscore first person character, like that. Now, in order to tell
The
Unreal,
default
hey,
pawn
I want to
class
use this game
is
mode,
me.
we need to go back to first
Okay,
person
that
map
makes sense.
and then go into the world settings. Now, by default, we don't have the world settings. So to get it, go to Windows, down here to world settings, select that. And within game mode override, go ahead and select the new game mode.
Whoa, slow down. Okay. Under game mode override,
We created GM underscore target
GM underscore target
game like that. So now we're using GM underscore target game. Also, right now our character doesn't have a crosshair. I want there to be something in the middle screen to tell our player where they're aiming at. So let's go to HUD and then select first person HUD, which was included in
HUD, first person HUD.
the
Okay,
assets
I'd
you
have to
migrated
create
over.
that
It is this
myself.
first person HUD that we're using. Now if I press play, we get a little crosshair in the middle of my screen. So as you can guess, the game mode is essential to any game you create. And this game mode will have to keep track of how many targets the player has hit. And in order to do that, we need variables. So if you've ever coded before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Unfortunately.
essentially variables contain data. So whenever we have something we want to store, we store that within a variable. And to create a variable, we want to come all the way over here and select the plus icon. Now this is going to go ahead and create a new variable down here. And let's call this my var or my variable. And then it's going to ask us what type of variable do we want. For demonstration, let's select an integer, which is a whole number. Now you'll notice that within the details panel, we're unable to change that value. First press compile, and now we get access to my var. So this could be any number. This could be 0, 10, or even -10.
Most of these will
We can
start
leave
at
it
0.
at 20 for now. And then in order to get this variable, I can drag it out into my graph, let go, and it's going to ask us if we want to get it or set it. I'm going to select get for now. Also, it created 2 custom events by default. We are going to recreate them, but let me delete them for now. So now that we have our variable inside of our graph, that's set to 20. Whenever I drag this out, it's going to get the value that's currently storing, which in my case is 20. Now I'm going to go bring back that event that we deleted called begin play. Now a begin play is very simple. This will fire once at the beginning of every game. So as soon as I play my game, this event begin play will fire. And we can see this in action right now by dragging from here and typing in print string once again. Let's go ahead and let's see what this variable is currently holding by bringing it out to the print string, holding it over the input and letting it go like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
So this will convert my integer
I can
into a string, which is what the print
text
string
by
is
doing
asking.
this.
And let's make this text color red so I can actually see it, and press compile. Now within the first person map, because within world settings we have that game mode selected,
That's cool.
that event
Okay.
begin play should fire. So if I press play, the top left hand corner, we get 20.
This is the most
So that tells us
shit
that everything
crosshair
is
I think
working,
I've ever
and this
seen in
variable
my
is storing our
life, dog.
values.
What is
That's how you
this?
create a value when you're starting
I'm
off.
gonna have to change
What if
that
you want to
shit.
change this value during gameplay? Well, I can drag my var back into the graph. Then instead of selecting get, we select set. So this is how we override whatever value is currently within your variable. So for example, let's go event begin play. And then instead of 20, which is what it is by default, it will be, let's go -5, right? So then we plug that up to print string. That means when I play my game, our value is first going to start off as 20, then immediately it's going to set to -5, and then that should print out -5 instead of 20. And up here we get -5 instead of 20. So that's how we change the variables of our game. So now that we know how to handle variables, let's create a new variable that will keep track of how many targets the player has hit. So let's go ahead and hover over all those and click delete. Now I'm going to delete that variable and click the plus icon again and call this
Probably should be
current
another integer.
score. I could have renamed the previous variable because we want an integer, but in case if the variable that you create is not an integer, make sure you select it right here. Now I'm going to drag this into my world and we're going to get it. So we're just going to get this current score and then drag from here and type in plus plus. So this would be increment integer. What this node will do is that it's just going to add 1 to this variable and then it's going to set it.
Something happens.
So if this variable was 3 and then this ran, then the variable would be 4. But we need a way for our target blueprint, so our target right here, to be able to tell the game mode, hey, I want you to execute this node. And we could do that with a custom event. So I can right click anywhere in my graph and type in custom event and click enter to get it. Now we can name this event anything because it's custom, and we will call this add score and then plug it up right here. So now whenever this event is called, then we're going to add 1 to the current score.
That makes sense.
And in order to see the current score, of course, we're going to use a print string. So when you are creating a game from scratch in Unreal Engine, you will be using a lot of print strings. And I can drag from here, or I can even drag from here, but I'll just drag from the output right there. And let's make a duration of 5 with a text color of, once again, orange. Really matter, so it's easier for us, the developers, to see and press compile. Now, of course, if I just go into my game and I start firing all my targets, nothing's going to happen. And that's because I need to tell Unreal when we want to call this event. So we want to call it through the targets. That's why we created this on component hit event, because now I want to get the game mode and add 1 to the score. So let's go ahead, right click anywhere and type in get game mode, which will get our world game mode. And then if I drag from here and type in the name of the custom event, which was add score, nothing is going to come up. That's because I need to tell
I can't
Unreal,
remember how to
hey,
do it,
when you
though.
get the game mode, I want you to treat it as GM underscore target game. So we need to tell Unreal exactly what game mode are we getting, and that is cast to GM underscore target game, which is the game mode we just created.
Right. Okay.
And we will hook it
when
up
the target
here like
is hit,
that. And
you're
also,
going to cast
I can
to the
delete this
game
print screen
mode
since we
to
no
tell
longer
it
need
that
it.
it's been hit.
Now I can
Then
drag
the
from
game
GM
mode will
target game
start.
and then type in add score and click enter. So now we are calling the custom event that we just created, and I can double click on this add score, which
Wait, slow down, my
of course
dog.
we're going to use we created as GM underscore target game. So we need to tell Unreal exactly what game mode are we getting, and that
Which is
is
cast
cast
to
to
GM target.
GM underscore target game, which is the game mode we just created, and we will hook it up here like that. And also, I can delete this print screen since we no longer need it.
I'm going to keep the
Now
print
I
screen
can
for
drag
now.
from GM target game and then type in add score and click enter. So now we are calling the custom event that we just created, and I could double click on this add score, which will take me to that event. Now this should work. So let me go move this off to the side, press play. If I have my first target selected, so let's go ahead and select GM underscore target game. Now, if I fire on it, you'll see that we get 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I keep on firing, and that increment will increase. So that's how we know our add score custom event is being called from our target. Now we do have a
It
really
works.
bad exploit players could use, and that is what I want to happen is that the player hits one target, so 1 point, 2, and 3. And since it's 3 out of 3, that means the player wins. But right now, the player can get to a count of 3 by coming up to just one target and going 1, 2, and 3. So I want it where whenever I hit an object, after I hit it again, this event right here no longer runs. And we're going to do that with a new variable, and that is a Boolean. So let's come to variables and add a brand new one within our target. And by default, it is a Boolean. We can always change that by clicking on this button and selecting Boolean.
And the variable
And
is
let's
going to
rename
be
this
is
variable
hit.
up here to is hit question mark. Since this variable is a Boolean, it stores a true and a false value. This variable will tell us whether or not this target has already been hit. If it was hit, this is true. If it hasn't been hit yet, then it will be false. So I can drag this into my graph and we will get it. Now we're going to go over one of the most essential nodes, or probably the most essential node
I'm in the
of
wrong
Unreal
fucking
Engine,
thing.
or just programming in general, and that is the if statement. So right click on the graph and type in if, and in Unreal Engine, they call it a branch. So select the branch, but the branch is an if statement.
I fucking
or
hate if
hold down
statements.
B and left click to create a branch. And that's how essential this node is. The fact that we have a shortcut, so B and left click, to create it means it's pretty important. So I can delete those because we don't need it. And now let me go ahead and let's move all these nodes over there. And first, we're going to see whether or not this object was hit. So if this object was hit, which means if this value is true, then we don't want anything to be plugged up here. Because the object was already hit, we don't need to make another call to the add score. I only want to make a call to the add score if the object hasn't been hit yet. So
Right.
if it is false. But I can't just plug it up like this because we have to set the is hit. So let me drag from this variable and select set. Now let me
Oh,
go
God.
and let's move these nodes right there and then hook up the is set to false and then hook it back up to the casting node.
Oh god. Okay. So basically what I'm doing is I'm checking if is hit is true. If it is true, nothing happens. If it's false, then I'm setting it to true so that it can't be hit again.
When a projectile hits our static mesh, we're going to check has it already been hit. If it hasn't been hit, if it's still false, then we're going to set it to true. So that means our object has been hit, and then we make a call to the add score. So the next time it is hit, because is hit is now set to true, then the true statement will be ran and not the false statement. And since nothing is plugged up, that means nothing is going to happen. Now if I play my game, walk up to a target, hit it once, it adds to the score, and then if I hit again, it doesn't add anything. I have to hit the other targets to add a score. So now we're at a score of 2 and 3, and now we won the game. I can't just keep spamming these different targets to increase the score. So let's jump back into BP_target. Now, generally, and this is just aesthetics, you do not have to do this. We want to hook up the bulk of my nodes to the true pin and not the false pin. The reason why is because it just looks nicer. So it organizes our graph just a little bit better. And we could do that by checking if this is hit is a not Boolean. So type in not Boolean and then plug it in. So now we're checking if is hit is not set to true. So if it is not set to true, then we will hook it up through here and set it to true. Just like that. So all we did was add a not to go ahead and flip the executable. And here's
I
the
don't
tip.
really care about
Instead
that.
of dragging a variable into my graph and then selecting get or set, I can hold down control and drag it in to automatically get it, or hold down alt and drag it in to automatically set it.
I think it looks
So
smoother
that
like
is
this,
another
actually.
nice shortcut to prevent one more click. Before we move on to the next chapter, let's briefly go over what we did. This event will run whenever our target is hit. Then
Okay, so going over what we did in this part. So when the target is hit, I'm going to cast to the first person projectile, which is me. No, that's the bullet. So it's going to cast to the bullet to check if it's the bullet that's hitting it. So it's checking the first person. It's checking if it's the correct projectile and not a player through this other actor node, being the object in first person projectile. Then it checks to see if the target has already been hit. If it has not been hit, it continues on. If it has been hit, it kills itself. If it has been hit, it sets the target to have been hit now. Or if it hasn't been hit, it sets it to being hit. Then casts to the game logic, which you have to get through get game. Oh, God. Okay. And then this is an event inside of the game mode. So you're going to cast to the game mode that you're adding the score in game mode. And then this was just a development tool to make sure that everything went through. In the actual game target, all we have is the add score thing. So this is kind of separate, but all it's checking is the logic of adding score. So that's all that's here. So if I wanted to go beyond that, I could do, like, if I was to do assists, I would have, like, if I was to do assists, I mean, I guess assists are just hitting a target that dies. I'll get into it further on down the road. And then this is still, I haven't done anything with this yet. This is still just shooting the gun and jumping and all of that. Okay. So pretty much all we've done is adding score logic.
we're going to check if it was a first person projectile that hit it. And if it was, we will then check whether or not this target has already been hit. And then if it hasn't already been hit, then we're going to set that variable to is hit to true so that these nodes won't be ran again in the future. And then we tell the game mode to add a score to our current score. And if we jump into the first person map, here's what we have. We can add 1, 2, and 3. So our game is slowly forming, but there is one glaring issue, and that is it looks kind of ugly. Having to rely on the print stream node to keep track of all of our scores looks really
I
bad.
disagree. I'm
This is where
totally
user
fine with it
interfaces come
looking
in
ugly.
handy. In Unreal, you can create a user interface using Unreal's Motion Graphic UI Designer, which is a mouthful, so it is called UMG for short. Right now, we will create a user interface to keep track of the player's score, which is how many targets are left for the player to hit. And we can create the user interface by making a widget blueprint. Before we create our user interface, don't forget to save everything because that would be very unfortunate if we lost all our progress. So select Save All and go to Save Selected. Now to create a user interface, we need to create a widget. So right click and go all the way down here to User Interfaces and select Widget Blueprints. Now it's going to ask us what type of widget blueprint do we want to create. We just want to create the basic one and call this WBP for widget blueprint underscore UI, because this is our main user interface that will be displayed whenever the player is playing the game. So
this is going to be like
and
your
here
health
in the middle is where we're
settings,
going
your
to create
stamina
the user
settings,
interface.
all that.
On the top left-hand corner, we have the palette. The palette contains all the items we could display to the player. And before I drag in anything, the very first item you need to drag in is the canvas panel. So whenever you create a new widget, the first thing you need to do is add in a canvas panel and let go. So let's go ahead and let's move the details panel off to the side so we can better see it.
Like that.
And the
Okay.
controls are the exact same as the blueprints. Hold down the right mouse button to pan and use the scroll wheel to zoom out and zoom in. Now we will add in text. So I could come to comment and drag out text, or I could type in text right here and drag it out like this. So now we have text that will be displayed within the game. And you'll also notice that we have this little flower icon right here. And this flower icon is anchoring. So let me go show what this is. So let me go place this at the very top left-hand corner.
So this just allows you
or
to snap
I can come up to
wherever you
anchors
want.
within the
He's
details
talking about
panel
this little flower.
and select the top left-hand corner. Now, in order to change the text within details, go to text, and we can call this something. Let's call this top left. Now, all the items we add to this widget will be down here within the hierarchy. So you see we already have text top left. If I Control C, Control V, we now have another top left that I'm going to drag all the way to the right over here. And within anchors, select the right-hand corner. Now we're going to call this one top right, and then Control C, Control V again. Drag this into the center. And for the anchors, select center.
Okay, so all of the things that I'm going to need for a first-person shooter, I would need a health bar, clearly. What else would I need? Thinking like standard UIs. A health bar, a mini map probably, which isn't going to be text bar, but for now I can keep it a text bar. You're gonna have ammo. You're gonna have like your abilities, which I don't exactly know how I want abilities to come back, but like if I'm kind of thinking like a Destiny type thing, I'm thinking grenades, I'm thinking a special ability. I'm thinking like, or like a grenade, a melee. Grenade, melee. Like, what's the Destiny 1 HUD? That was my shit, dude. Destiny 1 HUD. What do we got here? We got a grenade, a melee, and ammo. Dude, the Destiny 1 HUD was so fucking clean. Oh my god. It really was just such a clean HUD, man. So, health bar, I kind of want the health bar to be in the middle. And then I would need a map. So like super simple HUD. Those would be the elements that I would need. I need grenade melee abilities. Your ammo. Which, I mean, ammo would be a few times. If you're getting it to have different guns and shit. Because I do like the overall gameplay of Destiny where you have, like, heavy weapons to take down bigger targets or special weapons. I think 2 weapons would probably be the best way to do it instead of 3, but, you know. But, I mean, just super simple like that. I think that's your best play. Because if you add too much shit on the screen, you just start running into issues where, like, you're no longer immersed in the game. You're more looking at, like, you're more looking at other things. So I think grenade and melee and health bar are all progress bars. A stamina bar I don't think I would want on the screen. Or if I do, I would have it right under the health bar. I don't know. Or maybe I could do it like Arc Raiders does it, where it's right in the bottom. But something super simple like that works. Anyway, back to what we were doing.
And this one will be called center. Now I'm doing this. That's how we know exactly what these anchors are doing. Now let's press compile. And I want to display this widget blueprint as soon as the game starts. So we could do that within the game mode. And we can plug it up to event begin play. As a reminder, in case you don't have it, just right click anywhere and type in event begin play. So as soon as our game starts, we will create a widget, and that widget will be the one we just made, which is WBP_UI. Okay, so let's compile. And if we play our game, we do not see our widget. And that's because within the game mode, I'm creating the widget, but I'm not displaying
setting it to a player.
So drag from the return value, which contains our widget, and now we're going to tell
that'll be
Unreal
BP
to add
third person.
that widget to the viewport.
Add to
So
viewport. Okay.
Add to viewport. And now if I press play, our event begin play will fire and create our widgets. And we have our widgets.
Yay.
So we have top left, top right, and center. And notice how when I change the size of my window, the center is staying in the center. And the left-hand and right-hand corners are staying within their corners.
Oh, interesting.
And that's exactly what anchors do. It's essentially like responsive design. It ensures that this piece of the user interface will always stay there in relation to the player's window. Because not every window will be 1080 by 1920. Some windows can be really long, or maybe even some.
Got you. Okay, so I will have to anchor this to the bottom left. I'll have to anchor this to the bottom left. These will all have to be anchored to the bottom left. This one will have to be anchored to the bottom. This one will be top middle. Okay, that makes sense because then when you make... Okay, got it.
Gaming on a 1x1 monitor. People's setups can be pretty weird. So I do not need the center and I did not need the top right because that was just an example. I want the top left right there. And we will call this score. So this will contain the score of my game. But if I press play...
Score for me... Probably going to be bottom right.
Honestly, this widget is a little bit too small right now. I want to make it bigger. So let's select score. And within appearance, we have size. So let's make this a size of... Let's go 64. Because that was too big. We don't want it to take up the entire screen. Actually, let's try 45. Okay, that looks good. And that's the viewport of my game. But if I press play, center, and the left into the player's window. Because not every window will be 1080 by 1920. Some windows can be really long. Or maybe even someone's gaming on a 1x1 monitor. People's setups can be pretty weird. So I do not need the center and I did not need the top right because that was just an example. I want the top left right there. And we will call this score. So this
How'd you make it so much bigger, my dog?
Score of my game. But if I press play, honestly, this widget is a little bit too small right now. I want to make it bigger. So let's select score. And within appearance, we have size. So let's make this a size of, let's go 64.
Where the fuck is size? Am I dumb? I think I'm dumb. Size. Okay, so for right now, super rough, just trying to get a progress bar going.
That was too big. We don't want it to take up the entire screen. Actually, let's try 45. Okay, that looks good. I will actually just increase that a little bit more to 50. And now that we have a score in the top left-hand corner, I want that score to update whenever I hit a target. And to do that, we can add some blueprint logic within my user interface to tell the user interface exactly what score should be displayed. And we could do that within the graph. So not only do our widgets allow us to create a user interface, they also allow us to create logic right here.
Oh, God.
And I'll go select all that and delete it. Now, I specifically want to update this text right here.
Yeah.
And I first have to name this text. So let's call this score text. The reason why is because I want a clear name. So when I'm in the graph, I'm able to grab score text and update it. But you notice that, wait, there's nothing within my blueprints. I can't update that yet. And that's because you also want to make sure that is variable is turned on. So select it and turn on is variable. Now we get access to score text right here. So I can drag from here and get the score text. And then in order to update the score text, drag from here and go set text text and select that.
Set text text.
So now this is going to change that text to whatever is inputted right here. And to show that it is working, let's change this to hello world and then hook it up to an event begin play. But widgets don't have an event begin play. Instead, they have an event construct, which will run as soon as the widget is created. So it's essentially like an event begin play. So if I press play now, hello world is being displayed instead of score. Now, I want this to display the current number count from our game mode. So get current score. And we could do that by first deleting event construct because that was just an example, and create a brand new custom event. Call this one update score, and then hook it up right there. But actually, before we do, we need to first get the game mode update, and then do exactly what we did within the targets. Slow down, hook it up right there. But actually, before we do, we need to first get the game mode, and then do exactly what we did within the targets, and that is cast to GM underscore.
Okay, so same exact thing. Get game mode. Cast to GM underscore target game.
underscore target game. So cast to GM underscore target game to get access to current score, all the variables and custom events that are located within our custom game mode. And then I get drag from here. So let's drag from here and go get current score and select that. Now I will drag from it, hover over hello world and let go to convert
Okay, wait, slow down.
as an example and create a brand new custom event. Call this one update score. And then
Yeah,
hook it up
update
right
score,
there. But actually,
hook it up
before we
into it.
do, we need to first get the game mode and then do exactly what we did within the targets, and that is cast to GM underscore target game. So cast to GM underscore target game to get access to current score, all the variables and custom events that are located within
Yeah.
our custom game mode. And then I get drag from here. So let's drag from here and go get current score and select that. Now I will drag from it, hover over hello world and let go to convert that integer into a string and hook this all up like that. So let's compile, save. And now, of course, if I play my game and then if I fire, that score will not be updated. That's because we need to call update score within the game mode. So as soon as we add a score, then we're going to update this widget up here. But in order to call the update score custom event, we first have to get a reference to it. So we're going to take this event and store it inside of a variable. So to do that, I can come to variables, create a brand new one, and call this one user interface.
Okay. So basically what we've had is when a target gets hit, this logic will play, but not yet because I need to set it in this. Got you. Okay. So I need to create a new variable.
Now, as for the type,
This
instead of
I can get rid
selecting
of.
one of these types, I will type in the name of my widget, which is WBP underscore UI, and then just select an object reference.
Whoa,
Now
wait,
I get,
what?
I will type, now as for the type, instead of selecting one of these types, I will type in the name of my widget, which is WBP underscore UI, and then just select an object reference. Now I can hold down Alt to set it, and then I'm going to plug up the return value right there.
And it says an object
And then
reference?
just select an object reference.
Oh, that's what I did.
Now I can hold
Okay.
down Alt to set it, and then I'm going to plug up the return value right there and plug it up like this. So that's how, as soon as I create my widget, we will store that widget. So now that I have access to my widget, I can come down here. So let's drag this user interface by holding down
Oh
Alt.
man, he's
My
going
widget,
really quick
we
right
will
now.
store that widget. So now that I have access to my widget, I can come down here. So let's drag this user interface by holding down Control so I can get it. And then we will call that custom event that we made called update score and select that. And luckily for us, we no longer need that ugly print string, so we can kill it. And then plug up update score like that.
So the print string can go away, he says. This is going to be updating the score in add score.
Now, I know that was a
Okay,
lot to
it
just
was a
create a
lot.
variable to store my user interface. Instead, what I can do is let's delete user interface real quickly and also delete the variable. Hold down Alt to break that. Here's a shortcut. Instead of having to come down to variables and manually create it, I can right click on this output and go promote to variables. That will automatically create a variable that stores WBP underscore UI. And then we can call this one user interface. Just like
Oh,
that.
that was
and
way
hook it up like
easier.
this. And then hold on Control drag and hook it back up to update score. So that's the shortcuts to quickly creating variables. You can pretty much come to any of these outputs. For example, this integer, right click and promote to a variable, to quickly create one without clicking on the add button.
Okay.
Now, if I press play, we will update that score so it goes to 1, 2, and 3, which is what I want. But I also want it where before we display the number, we have the word score. So it's
Yeah.
score space, and then it displays the number.
So right now, he gave me the logic to shoot the thing, and it changes the number to 1. Down on the bottom right there. If I have multiple targets, so let's duplicate this. So now if I have multiple targets, 1, 2, okay.
So let's go back into our widget blueprint.
So the way that this is happening, so let me think through the logic here so I actually understand it. So what we just added was mostly UI work. In the designer, we set the score, we anchored it to the bottom left so that when you if you're in windowed screen mode, if you make it really small, like all of the UI will shrink into where it needs to be on a smaller screen. And then in target game, in BP target, when the target is hit by anything, it checks to see if it's a bullet. If the target has not been hit, it continues on the path. If it has been hit, it stops. If it hasn't been hit, it sets it as hit, casts it to the target game, which is going to handle a lot of the background logic. It's going to tell target game to add a score, and then it'll say target hit. In target game, when the target is hit, and it hasn't been hit already, when it casts add score to game target, it starts this logic, which will add 1 to the current score, which is a variable that is set to 0 to begin with. So when you add the score by a target getting hit, it will add the number 1 and update the UI. The logic for updating the UI is in here. Oh God. It's a bit confusing when you get to this part though, because basically, oh, I guess I'm never casting here, am I? Why do I have to cast back to target game here? Because I guess the game is handling all of the logic? Or is it because I have to get this widget? It's because I have to get this widget. Okay. So the game is, in general, the game mode is what is spawning the UI. So does that mean every time that I have a separate game mode, I'm going to have a separate UI? I'm guessing. Or no, because I can just call back this UI every time. But no, because it's in target game. Man, it's definitely a bit confusing. Because for me, it makes sense for the UI to be connected to the first person character, not to something separately. Like this is the game mode itself that's creating the UI. In any case, I kind of understand what it's doing. All of this logic is pretty much just to update the UI. And in the background, make it so that the variables change. I don't get why you would cast back to the target game, though, instead of just doing it on the character. Because once you go more complicated, like once I get into having progress bars for health and ammo counters, isn't it going to like get a bit fucky? Or am I going to have multiple different UIs on the screen at once? I don't know, man. It's going to be a bit confusing for a while, I think. Because, like, if I'm trying to set, like, a map, health bars, and all of this shit, none of this matters except the score because it's in this specific game mode. So I don't think I need any of this. This will be on the player UI, not the game mode UI. The game mode UI is separate from the player UI, I think. Back to YouTube.
And we're going to do that by dragging from in text and type in append. Now, this is one of those cases where it's not showing up, so we have to uncheck context sensitive.
Why does it want me to
And
append?
we will append string down there. So select that, and now that's going to automatically create two different nodes. So the purple node is string, and then this string is being converted into text. Essentially, strings and text are the exact same thing. They store words. And then I can delete this to text right there. And let's go move everything over here. And this append will add two sentences together.
What?
So for sentence A, let's call this score space. And then B will be current score. So we're going to add current score to the sentence of score space, which will then be displayed in the text. Okay, so let's compile, save again. And now if I press play, we have score 1, 2, and 3. So
That's an interesting way of doing that. Okay. An append adds two sentences together. One that you can have set all the time, and one that you can have as a variable. Or I guess both of them could be variables if you wanted to. And I guess I can add them in multiple places. So like if I wanted to have it in like a map UI or in like a character statistics page or something like that, I could do extras.
So within the user interface, let's go back to designer, select score, and then for the text, let's make this score space 0. Now we start off with a score.
Right, that makes sense. Okay. Score. So I can have this text be what the game will be starting at, and then that'll change. Hiya! Score 0, score 1, score 2, score 3. It's a kind of game. Is that how you spell score?
Score of 0, and then in increments as we hit different targets. One last thing I want to do with our user interface, if we go into graph, and that is, this is pretty messy. We have to get the game mode, and then we have to cast to it, get the current score. What I can do is simplify this. So I can delete get game mode and the cast and the current score. And then within my custom event, in the details panel, we have this input. So I can pass variables through events. So let me click on the plus icon. So that's how we better understand what I'm talking about. and this input will be called current score. And we're going to ask for an integer. So now we can plug that up, and it is this current score that will be plugged up right there. So if I press compile and go back to GM_target game, you'll see that when we call that custom event, we're able to pass data through it, in our case, current score, to the custom event. Where then that variable.
Oh, that's way simpler. Okay, so basically he's saying I can, instead of casting, I can create a variable in here of an integer. This is going to be the current score that's on the target game over here. And that should, not that one. Oh, that's so much simpler. Okay. I don't know why he didn't just do this from the beginning. I guess to like show the whole logic of it. So now because my current score is 0, it'll just chuck it in and then
can be
right?
used. So we call that custom event, we're able to pass data through it, in our case current score, to the custom event, where then that variable can be used. So this current score will of course just be the current score output right there. So if I press play, now it increased.
That's so much easier. Okay. Because the current score was already set to 0. Like if I set this to 5, it would say 6 as soon as I shoot 1. So because the current score is set to 0 from the very beginning of the game, I don't have to have any of this logic working yet. So none of this logic works until the target gets hit. So none of this logic needs to work until it gets hit. So that's why I don't need to cast at all. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Easier. This guy's guides are so good.
This without having to make a call to the game mode. Now, before we go over adding a win condition to our game mode, I want to briefly mention how we organize graphs. Now, let's say for some reason our current score is random as soon as we create our widget. Well, I can't within the widget just manually set the score to 0. Instead, I'm going to have to call the update score right here. So I will drag from the user interface and then type in update score and then hook it up. But you notice that now it is pretty messy because we have a line that's going through a node. Totally could leave it as is. There is nothing wrong with that. And our game will be completely fine. But for a sanity check for us, the developers, this is messy. So what I can do is hover over any lines and then double click to add a reroute node. So this will allow me to just move my line for organizational sake, just like this. So now my graph looks a lot nicer, and in my opinion, it's a lot more readable. Reroute nodes are amazing. You can pretty much organize your graph whatever way you may like. So let's press Ctrl Z to undo those. And another thing we could do is hover over a set of nodes and press the C key to comment. So this is going to add in a comment,
showing now
and I can say add score by calling
I
the
can update
widget,
the score
which
here.
is useful for us or other members of our team to remind us exactly what a set of nodes are doing.
I think.
So I can delete that comment. Another thing, what reroute or what I leave it is called the update score right here. So I will drag from the user interface and then type in update score and then hook it up. But you notice that now it is pretty messy because we have
It's
a
not
line
really
that's
that
going through a
messy.
node. Totally could leave it as is. There is nothing wrong with that. And our game will be completely fine. But
I'll
for a
fucking-
sanity check
I'll do
for
it
us, the
just for him.
developers, this is messy. So what I can do is hover over any press the C key to comment. Find us hit nodes, which is helpful so we don't lose our progress. And now let's go see our game. And we have 3 targets. So I hit 1, 2, and 3. And at this point, I want to be able to tell the player that, hey, you won the game because you hit all the targets. So in order to do that, we need to go into GM_target game. And we have to create a brand new variable that will be our max score. So our current score is how many targets we hit so far. And our max score is how many targets we need to hit to beat the game. So let's go to variables, click on a new one, and call this one max score. And then for variable type, this will of course be an integer because it's just a whole number.
It's a whole number, yeah.
Now we need to give ourselves the ability to somehow count how many targets are in my world. Right now there's 3. And we can do that by first, let's rake these nodes and select them all, then move them off to the side. And then drag from event begin play, and we're gonna get all actors of class. And specifically, we're gonna get all actors of class for a target. So BP_target. So now we get a reference to all the targets. And you'll see we have this really weird outpin, which is a bunch of squares. This is an array. Don't worry, we're not going over arrays in this video.
Arrays are
But
fucking
what matters
annoying.
is
I've
that
used them
this
before.
stores all the different targets. And because it stores all the targets in my world, that means I can see how many targets there are by dragging from here and typing in length. So it is this output that gives me the amount of targets we need to hit. So let me move all that over and then hold down Alt, drag max score to set it. And we will set that length to the max score. So what these 3 nodes are doing is that it's going through my entire world, counting up all my targets, and then it is setting it to the max score variable right there.
Okay.
And now let's jump back into update score by double clicking on it.
I feel like that's a weird way of doing it.
So click the add button, and this one will be max score, of course, of integer. And then we will add another pin, and let's make this a slash. So we're gonna current score slash the max score.
A slash?
So the player knows how many more targets they have to hit. So drag from there and add it like that. Press compile, and now back in our target game, we need to fill up the max score with the max score integer. So hold down control, and I could drag it into my graph and then plug it up, or shortcut, holding down control, I can hover over max score and let go to automatically connect that up.
Okay.
So same thing right here, because right now the max score is set to 0. Now if I play my game, we have a score of 0 out of 0, which doesn't make any sense. So for max score, drag that right there. So press play, we have a score of 0 out of 3, 1 out of 0 out of 0, which doesn't make any sense. So for max score, drag that right there. So press play, we have a score of 0 out of 3, 1 out of 3, 2, and 3 out of 3. And then at this point, I want to tell the player, congratulations, you won. So let's go add in that win condition whenever the current score is equal to the max score. So after we update the score, we will add a Boolean value. So hold down B and left click to bring in a branch node, or you can right click and type in if. So let's go plug this up right there and grab the current score and grab the max score.
The current and max score.
We have a bunch of comparison nodes.
Are equal.
Now we could check if one is greater than the other, but in our case, we're going to check if one is equal to, so equal, the other. So when current score is equal to max score,
if
that means
equal,
if this is
set
true,
the condition to
congratulations, the player has won. And in just a minute, we're going to create a proper widget, but to make sure that this is working, you guessed it, we will use a print string. So let's go. Congrats, you won. Smiley face. Okay. Compile, and actually we won't be able to see this, so make sure this is red with a duration of 5 seconds. Also, here's a shortcut. You could press Alt and P to automatically play my game instead of selecting the play button. So that is another shortcut, is Alt and P to play the game. We hit 1, 2, 3, top left hand corner, we get the print string, congrats, you won. Now it's time to create a widget that will stop everything in the game, stop what I'm doing, and tell the player you won. Because right now, as is with the little print string, they probably won't recognize that, hey, the game is over, stop playing. We will use the exact same process to create the windscreen as we did when creating the user interface right here. So press Control Space, and let's create a brand new user
Yeah,
interface
okay, so
widget
you
blueprints.
are creating new user
And
faces.
that is
or user
WBP
interfaces,
underscore
like
end
all the
screen.
time. That's gonna be odd. Okay, so user interface, widget blueprint, user blueprint. It's gonna be called WPBP underscore end screen.
Because this will handle both the windscreen and the lock screen. So let's double click to go inside of it. First thing you need to do with all widgets is add in a canvas panel. Now in Unreal Engine 4, this was added by default. I don't know why we have to manually add it now. And then we're gonna go to text and drag this in. Let's put this into the middle of the screen. Make this fairly large. So let's go 60. And let's even make this bigger. And I want to justify it in the middle of the screen. So go ahead into justification and select the...
And I want to justify it in the middle of the screen. Maybe. It's not going to. What the fuck? Why is it? Why is it slightly down? It needs to go up like 0.6, I guess. That's odd.
Middle one. Now, right now our text is looking just a little bit bland, so we can add some spice to it with a drop shadow. So first, in order to enable drop shadows, I need to go within the shadow color right here. So select this and then increase its alpha transparency. Right now it's 0, which means there's no shadow, to 1, which means our shadow is full black. And then for shadow offsets, change this. That's how we can slowly bring this out to make just a little bit of an offset. Okay, there we go. And then for the text, this will be U1, exclamation point, smiley face with a nose. Boom. Okay, we're going to leave this as is for now, but we are going to edit it in just a second. But I want to first display this in my world when we win the game. So of course we're going to do that within our target game, which we will be replacing this print string. So let's go ahead and delete that. Actually, let me go move my node set down and then drag from true, create a widget. And that widget is the end screen that we just made. And then add it to viewport so the player can actually see it. Okay, press compile. Now we go back to the game.
Viewport.
Score is 0 out of 3. Let's go increase that. And then we won. But there is an issue, that is the player can still run around.
Do I win? Target game still has unresolved errors. Compile? Why? What? You. Yes. I win. So that's checking if the max score is equal to the max amount of targets. And if that score is equal to the max amount of targets, it says I win. Okay.
And now the
Okay. Understanding. Okay.
This U1 screen is just stuck to my player, and we have no option to replay my game. So let's go ahead and add that option right now. To add the option to restart, we need a button. So go back into the end screen and type in a button to go ahead and get it. So let's drag in our little button. And for the anchor, of course, we're going to set this to the center. Let me go adjust my button like this to make it bigger, and then add text to my button. So drag out text and hover over and then let go. So this text will ask us if we want to restart. So restart question mark. Also, my button is way too bright. So go to style and under normal for tint, decrease this to something more darkish, like right there. Okay,
I mean,
that's
I don't
better.
care. I just
Press
want it to
compile.
work.
And now if we play our game, we have this U1, but we're still playing the game. And plus we don't get access to our mouse cursor. So we want to stop playing the game and we want to give the player the ability to get back their mouse cursor. Now for us, the editor, we can just press Shift and 1 to get our mouse, but the actual player won't have that ability. But before we do that, I want it where when I press restart, then the entire world restarts. So let me go to WBP_end screen,
Yeah.
select my button, and then with my button selected all the way
Select the
down here,
button.
create an event for on clicked. You will notice that this is an
That
event
makes
on
sense.
clicked for a button called button_0. So that name doesn't really make sense. We can rename it right here to restart button. Okay, so what I want to happen is that it reloads my current level. Right now my current level is called first person map. So let's drag from here and go open level by object reference. And that will be this level, which is first person map. Okay, great. Now let's stop the game and show the player's mouse. So jump back to GM_target game. And then as soon as we win our game, we add the win screen. We will drag from here and go set input mode UI only. So that means the player can only
that makes
input
sense.
actions to the user interface. And the specific user interface I want the player to interact with is the end screen. So drag from here and let go like that. Also, double click to add in a reroute node. And now it's asking for the player controller. So drag from here and go get player controller. You can think of the player controller as a reference to the player itself. And then to show the mouse cursor, because the mouse cursor will not show up, drag from here and go show.
Drag from here. Show player cursor.
Mouse cursor. And we're gonna
Show
set
mouse
it.
cursor.
So we're gonna set whether or not we see the mouse cursor and set that to true so we do see it again. Okay, compile, press play, moment of truth, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And it works. Oh, but I don't. But I can't play again. Weird. Okay.
We won, and immediately we get back my mouse cursor. I didn't have to press Shift 1, and then if I select restart, we restart the game, but there's a glitch and that is I can't move around anymore. I need to reset the input mode to game only. So let's come up here, and then at the very beginning of my game, that our input mode will be set to game by getting the player controller again. So let's grab that, and then drag from here and go set input mode game only.
Set
Okay,
input
so
mode,
now
game only.
we are getting the game, and go ahead and re-plug it up right there. Now we do have one issue still, and that is if we beat the game with the player walking around. So let's say the player is walking towards the target, then hits it. Even though we have no access, we're unable to move our player around, our player is still moving
I
forward.
find it hilarious
so we
when
need
games
to
do this.
completely disable movement, because that is a glitch. So go into, let's go back to target game.
Yep.
And
it's
down
gonna be
here,
back here.
drag from the player controller again, and let's get a set, ignore, move, input. So this will stop all the movement of my player character. Okay, now we want a new move input. So any movement that we were doing will be halted and stopped
Alright.
immediately once the end screen is shown. Now, if I beat my game when I'm running, so let's go fire right there, and okay, my
Shit,
player does stop.
shit.
A new move input. Ignore move in.
Set ignore move input. Set ignore move input. And this will stop my character.
Puts. So this will stop all the movement of my player character. Okay, now we want a new move input. So any movement that we were doing will be halted and stopped immediately once the end screen is shown. Now, if I beat my game when I'm running, so let's go fire right there, and okay, my player does stop.
Okay, so basically there was a glitch where if I was moving at the target when I shoot it, that. And it's still in UI mode. Which should have been here. Interesting. Why is it not? Oh. Okay, so it does still move, but I can restart the game and have it actually be a game again. Cool. So what did I do
all the
here?
movement of my player character. Okay, now we want a new move input. So any movement that we were doing will be halted and stopped immediately once the end screen is shown. Now, if I beat my game when I'm running, so let's go fire right there, and okay, my player does stop. And then I can click restart and get back my player. And let's make the end screen a little bit nicer because right now it's kind of bland. So to do that, let me go to end screen and go back to designer. And right here, I'm going to add a blur. So type in blur and drag in the background blur. Now I want this to take up the entirety of my canvas. So go ahead and make that really large so it encompasses my entire canvas. And for the anchor, make sure it's set to full screen so that the blur will be everywhere, no matter the size of my game window. And then with blur selected, let's increase this to 2. And then you'll notice, we are blurring the entire screen. That's something we don't want to happen. And the reason why is because background blur is at the top. Now, Unreal is different from other programs like Photoshop, where the last item is actually at the top. And then the top item is at the bottom. So I have to drag this. That's all right after the canvas panel. I let go, it will blur it. So now our text and the restart button are above the blur background. All right, now before we add a timer to our game, let's really briefly go over exactly what we did so far. Since if this is your first time creating a game, we have done a lot. So to begin, we created the target blueprint. And the target blueprint is really simple. It's just a static mesh. And we check whether or not a projectile is hitting that mesh. And if it is, we're going to add a score to the game mode. And then make sure this target can't be hit again in the future with these 2 nodes. And then in the game mode is where the majority of my game is. And so far, our game has been pretty simple. As soon as the player starts playing my game with the event begin play, Unreal will try to find how many targets are in my world and set it as the max score. So for example, right now we have 3 targets. If I create a 4th one, then we're going to have a max score out of 4 instead of 3. And then we create our user interface. Now, whenever the target is hit, we will add 1 to the current score. And then we'll update the user interface and check if the player has been in the game by seeing if current score is equal to the max score. And then if it is, we add the win screen to tell the player that they won, and then we stop our player's movement. So this is what we have so far. I can fire 1, 2, 3, and then
so he's at the same part that I am, pretty much.
Right now the game is fun, but it is not challenging. The player has infinite time to hit all the targets. So let's make it challenging by adding a timer. So the player will have to hit all the targets before the timer expires. And if they don't, they lose the game. That means we can either win the game or we can lose it. Before we create the timer, let's make the game a little bit harder by spreading out my targets. So let me put a target all the way over here. Put this down. Let's grab all of these and bring them
The mini's
all
not
over
really doing
here.
too much.
Maybe one's bigger than the other. And if I want to rotate the targets, I can press E, but then you notice that I'm unable to rotate the target in the target's direction. So when I try to rotate it, it does a weird rotation. If I want to rotate the target in its direction, then come up here and select the sphere icon to make it a cube. Now I can properly rotate it the way I want. And just like in the blueprints, where in the viewport I can hold down L and left mouse button to rotate my sun, in my world, I can hold down Control and L to rotate my level sun. So that's Control and L held down to rotate the sun. Let's go angle it right there. But now, if I play my game, our player will spawn all the way over there. Then I have to walk over here to shoot my targets. And that's because we have our player start right there. So wherever my player start is where the player will be spawned. So
I like
if I
that
move
this
this in
guy's
the
going
corner,
through
press
like the
play,
super
then the player will be
basics.
spawned in the corner. And if your world doesn't have a player start, then when we press play, we will start from our editor camera's location. So if I press play, we just start at that location that we were at. Now to get a player start, it's very simple. Come up to the add button, go to basics, and then drag out the player start. So that's how we bring one into our level. And let's angle it so it's facing the targets, and then press play. So respond looking at the targets. Just in case, if you ever do want to play your game, not from the player start, but from the camera, then if I click on these three dots, down here under spawn player at, we can select camera location to spawn once again at our camera's location instead of the player start. And to switch
That's
that
actually
back,
pretty convenient.
select player start. Now it is finally time to add a counter to my game so that the player has to quickly hit all the targets. If the timer expires and it hits 0, then our player has lost. So of course we're going to add this game logic to our game mode. Now we have our add score event and all the nodes connected to it. Let me highlight everything and move it down just a little bit because we are going to be adding to the event begin play. So at the very end of the event begin play, after we create our user interface, let's add in some new functionality by dragging out here, letting go, and creating a brand new node called set timer by event. So what this node will do is that any event that is hooked up to this node will run after a certain time. So if I drag from event, I can create a new custom event and call this decrease count. I need to tell this node how many seconds until this event can run. And for now, let me leave it at 1 second. And to show what this is doing, let's drag from here and go print screen. And this is decrease count is activated. Okay, so now if I press play, you see that this runs, and then after 1 second, our decrease count will be activated, and then our print stream will be run. But it just stops. We want this to run every single second and not just run once. And that's where looping comes in handy. So if I turn on looping, and now if I press play, after 1 second it runs, 2 seconds, 3, and so on. So every single second, this event is being activated, which is what I want because we're going to set this to 0.1 seconds. And now you see that every 0.1 seconds it runs. We're getting a lot of decrease counts being activated. Let's create a variable
I don't
that
get
will
what he's
hold our
going for on
time.
this part.
So click on the add button, and this one will be called time. Press compile. So we're able to change our default value and set this to something like 500. Now I want it where whenever this custom event will run, 1 will be subtracted from time. So I can hold down control and drag it out to get time and delete the print string since we no longer need that. And let me go ahead and move all these nodes down to give myself more room. And we're going to do a similar thing that we did right here, where instead of incrementing current score, we will be decreasing time by giving it a minus minus. So minus minus to decrement that integer and set it. And in order to see what our time is, we will add in a print string. As you can guess, we will add this to our user interface in just a second. So plug that up. And within the advanced menu, let's make this red so I can actually see it. And it's going to decrement every 0.1 seconds. That's too slow. So it will decrement every 0.01 seconds. And now if I press play, we'll see that it goes down from 500. It continues decreasing up until it gets to 0. And now it's in the negative range. So it's going to keep going down, down, down. All right, now that I know my timer is working, let's add it to the user interface. And we will do the exact same thing we did with update score. So double click to jump back to our user interface widgets within the graph
I'm very
and create
confused
a
what
new
this
custom
guy's doing
event
here.
that will be update time. And go into designer because we need to create that time text. So what I could do is drag in text like that,
I'm gonna skip
or
to
to
the
keep it
end of
consistent
this.
so it has the same
I'm
font.
at 130. What are you doing here?
Now, technically, the main bulk of my games, click, keep on, and then set it. Also, keep in mind that you can adjust the difficulty. So again, we will just like that.
Like, I do think
All
that I
right.
will
Sentence
have
will
game mode timers,
over
but it's
such
largely going to
option.
be like
Still and delete update the user, and it says that we lost.
it's largely
Now,
going to be
to
death. I
override this
think that
text
will.
with the you lost text. Congratulations, you just created your first game in Unreal. But there are some additional changes we can add to make it even better. Because right now it doesn't have game feel. It doesn't feel satisfying to play our game, and we want our game to be fun because why else would people play it? I want to make the gun look better and also have more of an impact when the player fires the bullet. That's why in this chapter, I will go over how to create your own custom weapon completely from scratch. So let's hop back into Unreal. Right now, the weapon is built into the first person character. So if I open up first person character by going to first person blueprints and double clicking on it, we will see in the viewport that the weapon is built in. Now, generally, at least for this case, we can leave it within the first person character because we only have one weapon. But what if we have multiple weapons that we want the player to hold? Then we wouldn't create the weapon within the blueprint. Instead, generally, we separate out the weapon into a separate blueprint. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this weapon and create its own blueprint class for it. So I can delete it right there and also come down to the arrow and delete it down there because that was being used by the weapon. Go into the event graph and all this logic right here handles firing. We're going to create our own fire
This
logic.
is what I'm wanting.
So I can highlight all those nodes and press delete. Now, if I press compile, we are going to get one more error. And that's because in the construction script, we are attaching the weapon to my arms. We don't need this because we don't have a weapon anymore. So we could go ahead and delete that and press compile. Now let's go ahead and create our weapon blueprints. So control space, and I'm going to create it within my blueprints folder. Right click, go to blueprint class, actor, and call this BP underscore rifle. And the reason why I chose an actor is because this rifle is going to be placed in my world. So double click to go into the rifle. And here is where we're going to be creating our weapon. So to begin, we could use Unreal's default gun, but in my opinion, I don't really think it looks nice. That's why, luckily for everyone watching this video, if you downloaded the content link in the description, you'll get the sci-fi weapon. So if I double click on this weapon, this is what we're going to be using. And in my opinion, it does look a little bit nicer than Unreal's default weapon. So let's go back into rifle, press control space, and drag this onto my default scene route, and then let go. So now our blueprint has that weapon static mesh, but you'll notice that we still get that little icon in the middle, which is the default scene route. We do not need that anymore. So I can hold down the left mouse button on top of my static mesh, hover it over default scene routes, and let go. So now the only component of my blueprint is the sniper rifle. And also, this is optional, we can even drag in a scope. So let me go ahead and drag the scope up here and then let go to add in a scope. And we will place the scope right there. So this is optional. If you don't want the scope, then you don't have to add it. Okay, let's press compile. And now we created a simple rifle blueprint that I can drag into my world. But of course, I don't want it just loading here. I want it to spawn with the player as soon as the game begins. So as soon as we press play, this weapon will be spawned and attached to my player's hand. And we will do that in the first person character. So let's jump back to the event graph. And up here we have event begin play, which will run as soon as my first person character is created. Right here, we're adding our inputs. And then I'm going to drag from here. And immediately after that logic runs, we will spawn an actor from class. And of course, it's going to ask for a class. We're going to spawn our rifle. So we are spawning the rifle blueprint, and then it's going to ask for a spawn transform. This is asking for the location that we want this rifle to be spawned at. This doesn't really matter because we are going to attach this immediately to the arms. But for now, I can drag out my arms into my graph, and then we can get the world transform. So this will get the location of my arms in space. This is a transform instead of location because transforms also contain rotations and scale. And if I drag from the transform, make transform, and then select it right there, we can see that transform just contains our location, rotation, and scale. So that's what that.
Okay, so I do think I want to figure out the weapon blueprints and stuff like that because I will probably have different weapons and stuff like that. And if you can switch weapons, that's cool. I wonder how you can spawn different weapons though, because this is spawning a specific weapon. How do you have the player choose a specific weapon? Because this is just forcing one on you, which, to be fair, for my first game, probably going to be the way that it's going to be. But, you know. And then it ends up just, like, snapping to it?
When we fire, and it can be a little bit addicting. We have one last change I want to make. We are almost so when we fire, and it can be a little bit addicting. We have one last change I want to make, and that is the ball projectile, because it doesn't feel like a bullet. It's a bouncing ball, and I don't know any guns in real life that shoot out a bouncing ball that just completely disappear after 5 seconds. So let's create our own projectile in the direction of the wall. So we can even see all the bullet holes that we're creating, and it looks pretty nice.
That's cool.
So if I restart the game, hit 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we won. So now our gun and our bullet feels a lot nicer than the default Unreal weapon. We do have one big issue, and if you had an eagle eye, you probably noticed it, and that is our bullet doesn't go into the direction of our crosshair. It doesn't go into the middle of the screen.
Yeah, it's fucking
Instead,
annoying.
it's random, or it depends on the animation of my gun. I want it where when I point at something, the bullet will go directly to where the crosshair is pointing at. So if I'm pointing into the middle of this grid and I fire, I want to go into the middle of the square, not off to the side. The reason why this is happening is because if you go back into the event graph of my rifle
Yeah, so I'm getting a little bit tired for now. I think I'm going to continue from there, though. So getting the weapon in, and then the projectiles. And then once I finish this video, I would like to figure out how to get enemies that shoot back at me using the same type of logic that I have. But I know that starts to go into blueprint classes, and that fucking sucks, so... Anyway, I'm gonna take a break for now. We have at least something. 3 little things. And a windscreen that restarts. So we're getting somewhere at least. I am going to save this. No. Save the whole thing. Save. Okay, so it's called My Project 4. Or no, it's not. It's called First Person Template. Shoot. It's called First Person Template. Because I'd like to get it back later. I'm gonna take a break. Catch y'all in a bit.